G'day Nature Nutters and welcome back to another episode of Brother Nature. Today I want to run through in this episode a few little tips and tricks I've learned over the years on how to find probably what I think is one of my favourite group of geckos, the leaftails. There's 20 odd species ranging from Sydney right up into Cape York into the Iron Range. So I'm going to make a few generalised points on how to best find these sort of spots throughout the day to increase and give you an advantage when spotlighting at night. So let's take a walk and I'll run you through what to look out for. All right, I quickly want to take a moment to discuss habitat selection. As you can see today, I'm up in this beautiful wet tropical rainforest on the Atherton Tablelands. But the altitudinal wet rainforests found down the Great Dividing Range are definitely ideal habitats and the best place to see the majority of the leaf-tailed geckos. There are a few exceptions, like the granite belt leaf-tail. As the name suggests, he's found down the granite belt country around the Stanthorpe region, likes that really big granite boulder country. I'll dive into those a little bit more later on, but then you have some other species around the Sydney region, for example, that like their wet sclerophyll forests with beautiful windswept sandstone escarpments. Some of the more unique, harder, rarer species to find with really isolated distributions, like their rock scree country in creek gullies. So I think the point I'm trying to make is get a guide, know which species you want to target, get yourself into the right habitat, and then if you follow a few of these principles I'm going to show you, you definitely will increase your odds of finding them of an evening when you're spotlighting. So let's go check out some of that stuff. So this is one of the major things to look out for is scar tissue in trees. As you can see, this tree has this wound and the fungus and the beetles and everything have made this cavity leading up into the tree. This makes a really good, safe daytime roosting spot for the geckos to hang out in. And it's like a food delivery service as well, because you know, these rotten cavities have a tendency to attract things like wood cockroaches and various other prey items. So the gecko can be quite safe and secure up there from all the weather conditions and predators themselves, but then also get a bit of a food delivery of their prey arrive. So definitely one thing to look out for is nice cavities in trees like this. It wouldn't at all surprise me if we were to come back here tonight that you'd find a little head poking out of there. So on a day's walk, as you're scouting around, also something to really check out for is have a little look in these cavities. Like this is only a small one and probably not the best example, but you will find their sloth skins, the skins that they've shedded lately will be sat potentially right here. So if you do come across a cavity like this and it's got a freshly sloth skin in it, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to find one on this tree tonight. All right, it's going to be a bit hard because it's probably 100 meters from me up in the canopy of this tree, but up here is a massive big cluster of staghorn fern. Now they provide really good cover as their fronds hang down, and also the nice moist damp environment they provide, because up there they're breaking down a heap of leaf litter and detritus, and that's obviously getting plenty of moisture from the rain and the atmosphere here. So there's lots of nice wet humus up there, a really ideal environment for particularly the female geckos to breed in and lay their eggs. So there's a pretty good structure for them to hide out and keep safe from their predators throughout the day. So another key thing to look out for is epiphytes up in the trees.
So for those species that prefer rocky habitats, the same rules apply. You're just merely swapping that forest timber environment with a rocky environment. You're still looking for those vertical cavities, nice little tight spots for them to shelter. Particularly where large boulders meet and leaf litter accumulate, they'll hide up in that leaf litter and then come down of an evening to predate at the bottom of the rock.
All right, here's another cracker. This big tree has succumbed to the years and the weather and has come crashing down in the forest. But as this tree dies, it has its bark all peeling back, and this obviously provides a wealth of timber, particularly for the boring beetles to feed on and live on, and the wood cockroaches, all those invertebrate prey items that the geckos love. So these dead trees in the forest with nice big peely bark, lots of prey, awesome spots to find leaf tails. So something I should mention is most of those rainforest loving species in the Salturius genus obviously live in elevated rainforests up the east coast in the various mountain ranges. But in those rainforests you find this evil stuff. This is moonlighter. There's a few other species like shining tree and the giant stinging tree, but this is by far the worst of them. This is moonlighter, a really nasty venomous plant covered in silica hairs. And when those silica hairs get into your nerve endings, they do all sorts of nasty things, and there is quite some prolonged pain from them. So if you are getting around, keep an eye out for the stinging trees. So this is probably pretty much a classic example of what I'm always looking out for when I'm walking around the forest. Trees like this with cavities and all sorts of vertical roosting points. Ideally, and I'll show you some photos of other specimens I've found lately, are the strangler figs and the curtain figs. They just provide an absolute wealth of cover, and your odds of finding them on tree species like that is really, really good. All right, another prime example. Beautiful big cavity leading up inside the center of this tree. All sorts of brilliant spots to hang out. There's going to be bats and all sorts in here. But what I do is I always be sure to check out the various cavities, and particularly down here on the forest floor for those skins I was talking about. Now there aren't any here because we're kind of in our winter here, or the back end of it, so there's not been much shedding or molting going on, but an absolute ideal specimen. Now it's easy to be fooled for thinking that this cavity in the bottom of the buttress of this tree is probably a good spot, where in actual fact probably not so ideal, because their predators like snakes and things can get up and make their way up the center here. So, you know, I wouldn't rule it out, but certainly not quite as ideal as if it were a couple of feet off the ground. Yet on the other side of that tree is a beautiful big cavity. Now that is ideal. Same tree, just the other side.
Alright, so I'm here in this beautiful section of rainforest, and so I've run you through all the places to best find leaf-tailed geckos. And as you can hear by the cars going past, I'm clearly on the side of the road. But when you start getting desperate and perhaps you're not finding them, somewhere that I have found not just leaf-tailed geckos but the various other species as well, not just the northern I should say, but in these culvert water drains that lead under the road. This is not a good example because this one's pretty blocked up, as you can see, but a great place to find creepy crawlies. Leaf-tailed geckos love getting up into the ceiling cavities of these pipes. It wouldn't surprise me even if you came out tonight and found one poking his head out of here somewhere. Anyway, if you're really getting desperate, you can crawl in there. Alright, so there's probably only about 5 or 6 species of the 20 that I'd consider to be relatively easy to find. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the leaf-tailed geckos ranging up the east coast have threatened, vulnerable or critically endangered status. A lot of them reside on single mountaintops or gullies and creekways, so you're really going to have some insider knowledge to find those species. So I probably wouldn't recommend most people go out after those ones anyway. But one thing to look out whilst you are walking around the forest are flowering plants like this. Of an evening, you know, insects and things are attracted to this tree, therefore their prey, their predators, like the leaf tails. So, you know, not just good for leaf tails, pygmy possums, all sorts of little gliders and things may come down and have a go at these flowers at night. So during your day's walk, keep an eye out for stuff like this. Alright, so this is another quite wicked, nasty plant to look out for. This is wait a while. Very similar to the rattan cane. It's actually a palm tree. But the really wicked thing about it, as you can see, there's plenty of spines that you don't want to obviously go grabbing a fistful of that. But the reason they call it a wait a while are these tendrils that come out
this aids the plant in climbing up into the canopy to get more light. Now you can run your hand back along the length like that, but the moment you try and retrieve it, all these spines get stuck in your skin, your clothing, everything, and they're quite ferocious. Here's a bit more of a mature length here. This is the rattan cane. If you would imagine underneath this bark is nice rattan cane, but you can see that this specimen climbs all the way up that massive tree into the canopy, and that these are all just the pups down the bottom. Here's an old tendril that's died, but really wicked stuff to keep an eye out for. Wait a while. Alright, nature nutters, it's Murphy's Law. Here I am telling you guys to avoid all these nasty plants, and whilst I was reviewing some photos, I get shining tree across the underside of my eye. This is already burning like all hell. Oh, alright nature nutters, I've just had to come back to the car because I got that shining tree across the face. Not sure if you can see it, but this is 1 minute later. I've just come straight back to the car to get the gaffer tape out to try and get some of these fine silica hairs. My nose is starting to run, my eyes are watering pretty hard, but this is something pretty handy to try and do, because what's happening is all those little glass needles are stuck in my skin, pushing venom in. Obviously the capillary action from the air and my blood pressure are drawing the the venom out the silica needles into my skin and my tissues. So one way to running gaffer tape across your face ain't very fun, but when you've got these things in your skin, it feels pretty good actually. Oh man. Oh. Okay, get some more tape. Wow, I was as I said, I was reviewing some photos and I turned around and it just brushed right across my face, my cheek and my eyebrow here. Oh. Mongrel stuff. Oh. Alright, you get the drift. See you later. Alright, nature nutters, the time has come for us to go do some spotlighting this evening and apply those techniques that I've been demonstrating. So you may have noticed already that I scouted this beautiful tree earlier today. So we'll start by getting the torches out and seeing if we can get any eye shine here. So fingers crossed that we get some of these beautiful leaf-tailed geckos for you to see. Let's go check it out. All right, so I have scoured this tree and unfortunately this evening there are no leaf towers on this, so we'll continue through the forest. But that doesn't go to say that, you know, if you're out looking at trees like this yourself, that there couldn't be one here tomorrow night, for example. They do, particularly in the summertime, move around throughout the forest quite a bit. So, you know, if you're in your neck of the woods looking for them, do check out trees that you have checked in previous nights again too. Right, babe, I've got some eye shine on the bit too, right through the forest over there. Another nice big tree, so let's go check that out. All right, so we made our way through the forest to where I'd seen some eye shine, but it turned out that it wasn't a leaf-tailed gecko at all, but a giant tree rat. So unfortunately we spooked him, we can't show you that, but just one of the perks for being out in the forest. All right, well, this is a pleasant surprise, and this is just a classic case of just a young juvenile specimen on the entrance to his little cavern. As you can see, I've spooked him now, and he's going to make his way back up into his little home there. But this is just a classic case of what you're looking out for. All right, guys, we have this beautiful little specimen here, and it's actually a really good specimen to maybe make the point with being incredibly careful when handling these animals. All the geckos and skinks and things will drop their tail if mishandled. You can see that this specimen here has got a rather large shield shaped tail. And that's its secondary tail. It's nowhere near as elaborate as its first original, the tail it's born with. Not that I think that this is mishandled by someone. It's probably, and quite often what happens is they lose them, particularly in sort of territorial mating and stuff like that, but then also encounters with their predators. But if you choose to obviously do what we do and take photos and handle these guys, sometimes the animal's not always in its best position in situ like this, so you might need to just gently manipulate a little bit to get that photo you're looking for. But in the process, be incredibly careful never to apply pressure to that tail. You shouldn't really ever have to apply any pressure to them. Like, this animal will quite happily just sit on my hand and behave quite nicely. I'm able to obviously just put my hand continually underneath it. He appreciates my body warmth, so he'll behave quite nicely. But yeah, I'll reiterate, never to apply pressure to that tail. It's never nice to see a tail writhing around in the leaf litter. You've only then got half your photo subject. So yeah, if you're going to enjoy doing this stuff, please just be careful to handle them correctly. Alright, nature nutters, how lucky are we? Same log, just a little bit further up the length. It's partners here, and a really good example of its first primary tail. A lot more elaborate and pretty. As you can see, this animal's just sat here beautifully. You could happily sit here just snapping away, getting some lovely shots and with absolutely no need to intervene or interfere with this animal. Yeah, but just a really nice specimen. I can see from this angle that this specimen's a beautiful little male. He's got quite a impressive swollen set of testes in under there. Now, just for demonstration, I'm actually going to just pick him up. I'll show you a bit of a close-up of that. Just get him in the light nicely. But yeah, you can see those nice testes there. Obviously, if this were a female, it'd be relatively flat, not much to show there. But the male at this time of year comes and joins the females on the tree like this. He'll pair up with her for a good portion of the summer. Obviously they mate and do their thing, and she'll find a nice little spot up in the canopy where there's a nice little pile of wet humus. She'll scratch away in there and lay generally sets of 2 eggs, and she'll proceed to do that. Given how healthy she is and how much feed she's finding, she lays, as I said, sets of 2 throughout the summer. But they're this beautiful calcareous egg, which is like a soft shell like you'd see with marine turtles. He's gone off walking, so we'll leave him be. So there's a few things I should probably explain. When eye shining for these guys, they have a tendency to close their eyes sometimes, and through the thick vegetation, obviously getting decent angles on most trees is quite difficult. So I find the best thing to do is to come to the base of the tree and with your torch shine up the tree like this, and you should hopefully then get the eye shine of these guys. Alright, this is very typical of their behaviour. This ambush position, face down, waiting for prey to come up the tree to them. So that's why that technique of getting to the base of a tree and shining your light up and just doing a perimeter of the tree, constantly looking up for that eye shine, is a really good technique. So one of the really cool things about the leaf-tailed geckos are these paddless digits. Really cool claws. I'll obviously show you some blow-ups of those. So that's something special. But then all these beautiful spinose tubercles around the margin of the animal, along the arms, legs, tail, head, neck. Virtually the entire perimeter of the animal is covered in them. And that is a defense mechanism, so as they can hug the tree to soften their silhouette, like you could see it on the margin of the tail here. Once he really flattens his body down, she's going for a bit of a walk, but once he flattens himself down during the day, he won't cast a shadow, therefore making a silhouette. So that's how they get that beautiful, quite truly superb camouflage. Very, very impressive. Alright, so as you can see from this shot, this is the male. You can see those swollen testes I was talking about. But this is a good opportunity actually, and if I can keep this in frame, that'd be cool. But to see the detail of these spinose tubercles and all the other little denticles across their body, you can see the entire underside of their body is quite flat. So once they're on the tree, this loose skin here really has the ability to just drop down, really hug the tree. And you can see how soft and supple this is, and the way it contours around my finger as if it were the tree, that they can completely drop their profile down onto the tree, removing that silhouette and really increasing their camouflage capability. So just a brilliant pattern, a brilliant design on probably what has to be one of the most photographic gecko species in Australia, I reckon. Well, beautiful people, I'll wrap it up here. I certainly hope you've enjoyed watching this episode and that you find these little tips useful in the future for finding the beautiful leaf-tailed geckos for yourself. I think there's an important point I need to add as well, and that is of an evening when you're out spotlighting looking for the eye shine, to keep that torch right up by your eye, because you do have quite an acute angle for their eye to reflect that light back at you. I'll leave you with a number of photos that I've accumulated over the years, although this is only a fraction of what I do have. Yeah, the variety and the wealth of shapes and structures you get on them is just fantastic, I reckon, making them probably the best genus and group of geckos in the country. Anyway, thanks again. We hope to see you on the next episode. Come explore, be more with Brother Nature.